Alright, last weekend in the Championship did not disappoint. We're going to be talking over all of the big talking points in today's video, but the main focus will be the midweek matches that we've got coming up in the Championship. All of those games will be predicted in today's video, and as always I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below as well. Now in terms of my own score predictions from the weekend, I did fairly well last time around. I got 3 scorelines spot on and a couple of results correct as well. Hopefully we can do just as well in midweek. Let's jump into the games. Starting out with the big game on Tuesday, we've got Cardiff going up against Portsmouth. It was a great weekend for both of these sides. Cardiff absolutely demolishing Plymouth, beating them 5-0, and Pompey finally getting off the mark with their first win of the season, beating QPR. To put into perspective how mental that scoreline was for Cardiff, they've scored 6 goals at home all season, and 5 of them came at the weekend against Plymouth. Alright, they were helped out by the red card in that game, and I can't see them scoring 5 goals in this game against Portsmouth, but taking nothing away from that performance, it feels like they've really had a bounce since Bullock has left the club. Some individuals really impressed me over the weekend. Alex Robertson in midfield looked like a standout performer, scored that brilliant goal. Ruben Colwill as well, who was involved in 3 of the 5 goals Cardiff scored. There's just a lot more positive vibes right now. This one won't be a walk in the park. Portsmouth finally getting off the mark and coming from a goal behind in that game against QPR as well. And generally speaking, I think that Portsmouth have given a decent account of themselves on the road. They've only lost 2 of the 5 away matches they've played so far this season. They're averaging more than a goal per game on the road as well. Score prediction in this one, I think I'm just edging it towards Cardiff, maybe with home advantage, but the draw there wouldn't surprise me. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Cardiff in that game. I was really impressed with them over the weekend. After that, we go to Ellen Road for Leeds United up against Watford. A massive result for Leeds over the weekend, beating Sheffield United in what a lot of people would put down as a promotion contenders clash. I think 2 sides who we expect to be in and around the automatic promotion race come the end of the season. I think that was a real statement of intent from Daniel Farke's side. Not just the 2 goals they scored in that game, but to have kept a clean sheet as well. Leeds do come into this one against Watford as the obvious favourites. Really underwhelmed by Watford over the weekend, going into such a big derby game against Luton Town. A Luton side who haven't been firing on all cylinders so far this season, but as we mentioned in the preview to that one, Watford on the road this season have been putting up red flags. They are conceding a lot of goals, especially when away from Vicarage Road. So far this season, they're averaging 2.6 goals against them in away matches, and with the way Leeds are going at the moment, you'd expect this one to be a bit of a routine win. It's always dangerous saying that, especially when it comes to Leeds and in the Championship in general, but score prediction for this one, I'm going to go 2-0 Leeds. I struggle to see past them in that one. Next then we go to Oxford up against Derby. Now I did manage to call Oxford's result against West Brom spot on over the weekend. I had that game down as a 1-1 draw. In the end, that's exactly how it finished. Oxford continuing their unbeaten streak at home so far this season. I think all things considered, that's a decent point against the Baggies, especially considering they levelled that game up in the 92nd minute. For Derby, they finally got off the mark with their first away point of the season over the weekend against Millwall. Could have been all 3 had they not conceded late on, but I think we always expected that one against Millwall to be a fairly tight encounter, as I think this one will be if I'm being honest. Score prediction for me in this one, I think I'm feeling a draw. 1-1 I'm saying between those 2. After that we go to Deepdale for Preston up against Norwich. A brilliant result for Preston over the weekend, beating Coventry 1-0. Honestly, we could have been out of sight after 45 minutes of that game. Emil Rees squandering some really good chances in the first half, but eventually Rees did get his goal, and that should do his confidence the world of good going into these next matches where we're really going to be relying on him, while Osmajic is still out suspended and Will Keane is obviously still nursing an injury. This one won't be easy against the Norwich side who I have liked the look of recently. It was a draw for them over the weekend against Stoke City. Bit of a concern for Norwich coming into this one is the injury to Marcelino Nunes. Looks more than likely that he will be out of this game at Deepdale, which obviously does give Preston an advantage in hopefully winning that midfield battle, which will be really crucial for this sort of match. Where Heckingbottom has really improved Preston of late has been our defensive record. We've now kept 4 clean sheets from our last 5 matches, and when you consider the volume of goals we're conceding in the final months under Ryan Lowe, that's bloody impressive, considering he's doing it with the exact same group of players. With that being said, we are still giving away good chances to the opposition. Coventry could have easily had a goal or two over the weekend. Watford, when we played them not too long ago, had 2 gilt-edged chances, which they both squandered. But I'm expecting a competitive game at Deepdale here. We've been pretty good at home of late. Norwich are no mugs though. Score prediction in that game, I'm fancying a draw. 1-1 I'm saying. Next up we go to Hillsborough for Sheffield Wednesday up against Swansea. Both sides looking to bounce back from a loss over the weekend. Sheffield Wednesday losing against Burnley. Did think they got into some really good positions in that game, but squandered their chances when they came along. And I think when you fall behind against a side like Burnley, they're always going to make it very difficult for you, especially with their pretty impenetrable defensive record so far this season. For Swansea, it's been a bit of a frustrating time for them of late. They had more of the ball against Blackburn, had more shots in that game, but it was yet another 90 minutes where they failed to hit the back of the net. They've now only scored 1 goal in their last 4 matches, and this is becoming a bit of a problem for Swansea. They're currently the joint lowest scorers in the division, along with Preston North End. Feels like a fairly low scoring encounter here. I just think with home advantage for Wednesday, I give them the slight edge in this one. Score prediction there, I'm going to go 1-0 Wednesday. Next up, we're off to the Bet365 to Stoke up against Bristol City. Stoke drawing 1 apiece with Norwich over the weekend. Good to come back from a goal down in that game. I thought that Victor Johansson was good again in goal for Stoke, and a really nice goal to get them back into that one as well. Going up against the Bristol City side, who picked up a cracking result over the weekend, beating Middlesbrough 2-0, obviously, with Liam Manning sadly having to take a step back from things for the time being. That was a cracking result for the Robins, and a bit of a weird game, if I'm being honest with you. On another day, Bristol City could have very easily gone into half-time 2 goals down. Instead, they go into it with a 1-goal lead, and they did quite well, Bristol City, to pounce upon a couple of mistakes by Middlesbrough, and keeping a clean sheet away at the Riverside is certainly nothing to be sniffed at. Honestly, Bristol City always go and prove me wrong in my predictions. Whenever I have them down to win, they tend to lose. Whenever I have them to lose, they tend to win. So, Bristol City fans, I'm probably going to be doing you a solid here. Score prediction for me, I'm going to go 1-0 Stoke, which inevitably means Bristol City probably win this game. And after the weekend we've just had, QPR against Coventry has taken on even more importance. QPR, who currently sit rock bottom of the Championship, going up against the Coventry side, who if they lose this game and results go against them, they could find themselves bottom of the Championship after this midweek block of games. It's not been a good start to the season for either side, and if I'm being honest with you, I'm struggling where to go with this prediction right now, because I don't have a great sense of faith in either side that they're going to start picking up points regularly going forward. QPR obviously got themselves into that leading position against Pompey, all to throw it away and lose it 2-1. For Coventry, I obviously got to see them up close and personal at Deepdale over the weekend. I thought they were really poor in the first half. I thought they were quite lucky to go in at half-time at 0-0. Emil Rees squandered some really good chances. Robbie Brady got into a really good position as well to give North End the lead. Second half, I did think Coventry did improve. They got themselves into some good areas and should have had at least 1 goal. Bit of a misfiring forward line and a decision that obviously went for Preston meant that that wasn't the case in the end. But the problems are stacking up at Coventry now, because I mean, I was amazed just how easily we were able to play through them at times, how many chances we actually managed to accumulate. I know we only won 1-0 in the end, but I mean, we could have had 3 or 4 goals in that game if our forwards were a little bit more clinical. Score prediction in this one, I'm really not sure. It depends who turns up on the day. I'm going to sit on the fence, go for a 1-1 draw, because that's just a really hard one to read right now. Both teams are in desperate need of something there. After that, we're off to Ewood Park for Blackburn Rovers up against West Brom. Blackburn made it 5 wins from 5 home matches over the weekend with a 1-0 victory against Swansea. Seemed like Todd Cantwell was a standout performer for John Eustace's side in that game. In terms of the overall performance, it didn't look vintage from Blackburn, but another 3 points on the board at home and a clean sheet is nothing to be sniffed at. Going up against the West Brom side, who still find themselves in a little bit of a rut right now after what was a really good start to the season. Carlos Corberan's men do find themselves without a win now in their last 4 matches. They were so close to all 3 points against Oxford, but ended up throwing that one away late on as it finished 1-1. This one's a tough one to call right now because Blackburn at home have just been so formidable this season. Pound for pound, I do think West Brom are a better side, but the home advantage has been so strong for Blackburn so far this season. West Brom aren't quite firing on all cylinders right now. With it being a midweek one as well, I wouldn't be surprised if Blackburn maybe just edge this one. Score prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Blackburn in that game. Next up we go to Hull up against Burnley. Bit of a frustrating one for Hull over the weekend. Gave a decent account of themselves against Sunderland. There wasn't that much in that game, ultimately losing it to a bit of a controversial goal where the referee had his part to play in Sunderland breaking on the counter-attack. This one won't be much easier. Say what you like about Burnley and their lack of sharpness in the final third at times. They're just not conceding any goals right now. It was yet another clean sheet for Scott Parker's side over the weekend as they beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-0. That's now just 4 goals they've conceded in their 10 championship matches so far this season. And what we said over the weekend about Hull, I do think is starting to ring true, where it's tended to be the games where they picked up points this season have been against bottom half opposition. Typically the games where they've struggled have been against those sides in the top half, and with Burnley currently sat second, I think they are probably the obvious favourites for this fixture. Score prediction here, I think it probably will be another clean sheet for Burnley. I'm going to go 2-0 to Scott Parker's side. After that, we go to Luton up against Sunderland. I believe this will be the first time these two sides have played each other since they met back in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So we'll be interested to see what the atmosphere is like here at Kenilworth Road. Speaking of the atmosphere at Kenilworth Road, it looked absolutely banging over the weekend. That was a massive result for Luton against your local rivals, beating them 3-0. Exactly what Rob Edwards was in need of after having a bit of a turbulent time before the international break. The real test for Luton, though, will be in this sort of game against a really good Sunderland side, and whether or not they can follow up the weekend's performance with a good result and performance in this game, because Sunderland will make things a lot harder than Watford did over the weekend. For Sunderland, a good win over the weekend themselves against Hull. Wasn't a great game of football from a neutral's point of view, but winning it 1-0, that was their 6th clean sheet of the season, which isn't to be sniffed at. I also saw a bonkers stat going around on social media as well. Sunderland have now picked up more points in their first 10 games of this season than they did in their last 22 matches of last season, which speaks to the way in which they've improved so rapidly this time around. It's a tough one to call. I have been guilty of falling into the trap of thinking Luton are back after they've won previous games and then they've not quite followed it up with their next results. Score prediction in this one, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends level. I've just got a sneaky feeling that Sunderland could sneak it on the road. 2-1 Sunderland, I'm saying, for that game, but Luton could very much turn up to the party here. Next then to the den for Millwall up against Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth looking to bounce back from a howler of a result over the weekend, losing 5-0 against Cardiff. Alright, the red card in that game definitely distorted the result in the end. Sissoko letting his teammates down there with that one. He'll be a big miss for these upcoming matches, and I mean, it's important to remember, I think Millwall probably do come into this game as the favourites, being the home side, but Millwall are currently below Plymouth in the league table. They're on 10 points right now. Plymouth are sitting just above them on 11. For Millwall, they are without a win in their last 3 matches. It was a draw over the weekend against Derby. I don't think this one will have as many goals in, I wouldn't have thought, as Plymouth's game over the weekend where they shipped 5 to Cardiff, but I think that Millwall may just be on the right end of a slim victory. Score prediction in that one, I'm going to go 1-0 Millwall. Still yet to be fully convinced by Plymouth on the road this season, as the weekend probably showed. And then to finish off the weekend, we're going to the Riverside for Middlesbrough up against Sheffield United. How will Sheffield United bounce back from their first defeat of this season, which they suffered at the hands of Leeds United? Well, Middlesbrough, honestly, it feels like we're in Groundhog Day with them. Every single preview, it feels like we're saying the exact same things about Michael Carrick's side. Over the weekend against Bristol City, they got into some really good areas, should have had 2 or 3 goals, but some basic mistakes at the back ended up letting them down, and they go on and lose that game 2-0. Such a frustrating one. and for Borough fans right now, because you can see so much potential in that side. They're just not doing the basics. This isn't the ideal sort of match to bounce back in either, against a Sheffield United side who have been so resolute so far this season, and they themselves will be right up for this game, you'd think, looking to bounce back from that Leeds United defeat. Chris Wilder, I'm sure, will be more than keen to get one over on his former employers as well. Listen, Middlesbrough, when things finally click, they're capable of taking on anyone in the Championship and dismantling them, but it doesn't feel like they're there right now. And score prediction for this one, I'm going to go 2-1 Sheffield United on the road. Well guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and make sure to get your score predictions for midweek in the comments down below. But apart from that, thank you very much for tuning in guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.